Now, fast forward, where are we today? We have an aggressive agenda. We're going to need that time. Canadians want us to work hard, and this government is prepared to work hard in order to deliver, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member will have 12 minutes and 30 seconds when this item comes up again. Statements by members, déclaration de député. The honourable member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Mr. Speaker, today is UNESCO's Biosphere Reserves Day. Canada has 18 unique biospheres in which more than 2 million people live. Biosphere reserves exist to preserve and uphold natural ecosystems, which contribute to the needs and healthy living of a growing human population. Hamilton, my beloved city, is part of the Niagara Escarpment, which has the highest level of biodiversity among Canada's 18 biospheres. The Bruce Trail, which is Canada's longest footpath, runs through the escarpment. I love walking through that trail, Mr. Speaker, and taking in the beautiful nature that surrounds me. I close my eyes now and see it. Oh, how beautiful it is. Mr. Speaker, I can't think of a better way to celebrate UNESCO's Biosphere Reserves Day than by noting that our government has made the environment a fundamental consideration in our policy and infrastructure investments. Happy Biosphere Reserves Day, one and all.
The honourable member for Langley, Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, Kathy Bernard is one of the longest living survivors of melanoma in North America. Her journey with the disease began in 2003 when she first was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. But cancer couldn't keep Kathy down. In 2006, while still battling melanoma, Kathy and her family started the Save Your Skin Foundation, a national not-for-profit advocacy group which is dedicated to leading the fight against skin cancer. They provide national education, advocacy, awareness to elevate the patient voice within Canada while providing compassionate care and support for those affected by the disease, directing patients to reliable sources of information and helping them access medical and financial support that they need to navigate the journey. Thank you to Kathy Bernard, her husband Scotty and family for your tireless work raising awareness on melanoma and other forms of skin cancer. Through your efforts, Kathy, we're closer to realizing a Canada where skin cancer is prevented, survived, and cured. Thank you.
Member for Winnipeg South.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, this week the government is highlighting Gender-Based Analysis Plus Awareness Week. This year's theme is GBA Plus, Inclusion Innovation for the Next 150.
As Canada works to position itself as world leader in innovation, Mr. Speaker, it needs to harness the talents of all Canadians. Using GBA Plus is one way to ensure inclusive growth and an economy that works for everyone. As parliamentarians, we are in a unique position to put GBA Plus into action in our work and position Canada for a prosperous future. Pendant la semaine de la
During GBA Plus Awareness Week, let's all do our part to achieve equality.
Égalité. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, more than a year ago, a man named Mark Ferrant called my office. Mark was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder after serving as a jury foreman in the trial of a young man accused of a gruesome murder. Mark discovered that when ordinary Canadians suffer as a result of jury duty, there are no supports available. There are programs for court workers and others, but nothing for jurors. Since then, Mark's tireless advocacy has garnered national attention, built a network of former jurors across Canada, and succeeded in establishing a free counselling service in Ontario. This week, he's on Parliament Hill to call on the government to ensure that when Canadians do their public duty and serve on a jury, their government has their back and provides the supports they may need, no matter where they live. I want to thank Mark Ferrant and other jurors who've stepped forward for their service to our justice system, for their courage in speaking out, and for bringing to the attention of this House a problem we can and must solve now for all Canadians.
Le député de Bourassa.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, today we have visitors from Agir, an association for those affected by kidney disease, which is located in my riding of Bourassa. It's a not-for-profit organization founded in 1979, which brings together people with kidney disease who have dialysis or have had transplants, their supporters, and healthcare professionals. The purpose of the association is to bring together people with kidney disease, support them, and help them lead fuller lives in society through monthly meetings, social, cultural, and leisure activities of all kinds. I'm delighted and I congratulate members of Agir. I'm glad they accepted my invitation to visit Parliament, and I wish them the warmest of welcomes and an excellent day here on Parliament Hill.
For Banff Airdrie.
Canada's tourism sector is an important contributor to our country's economy. It's a $90 billion a year industry that employs more than 1.7 million Canadians in every region and is important to every community across the country. Chaque année, à cette période.
Every year at this time, we celebrate Tourism Week in Canada. This popular initiative highlights the many benefits of tourism for the Canadian economy and explores new possibilities for the industry.
It's a beautiful country that has so much to offer, from the mountains to our oceans to the northern lights. And we have great food and wine, Aboriginal tourism. We have vibrant cities and every outdoor activity that you can imagine. As we celebrate Tourism Week, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of the operators and the workers all across this country in the hospitality industry that make, with all their hard work, Canada such a great place and a welcoming place to vacation. People from all over the world come here to visit, and they are treated to first-class experiences that they will remember for a lifetime. Happy Tourism Week. Bon semaine de tourisme.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, I was fortunate to grow up only steps from the iconic wrought iron gates of the Victorian Public Gardens in Halifax. And now what Haligonians have known for 150 years since the gardens first opened in 1867 has been made official. The Halifax Public Gardens have been named one of the top 10 North American gardens worth travelling for. The Garden Tourism Award is given jointly by the Canadian Garden Council and the American Public Gardens Association to recognize amazing gardens on this continent. With the garden's lush flowers, shrubs, unique tree specimens, statues, fountains, footbridges, and idyllic pond, and indeed the community pride that the public garden evokes, this recognition is well deserved. In Halifax, a team of gardeners and arborists has watered, weeded, and pruned and poured love into our beautiful gardens for years to make them what they are today in Canada 150. I want to congratulate in particular the Friends of the Public Gardens for their ongoing dedication to the preservation and protection of this special Halifax treasure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday marked the beginning of National Paramedic Services Week, and it gives me great pleasure to rise and pay tribute to our country's paramedics. These dedicated men and women serve on the front line of healthcare delivery and public safety across Canada and are proud members of our first responder community. There are an estimated 40,000 paramedics across this country who serve in our municipalities, remote communities, and armed forces. They are there in our moment of greatest need, whether it is at the front line of Canada's opioid epidemic, at the scene of a motor vehicle accident, delivering community paramedicine in rural and remote areas, or in a time of crisis. Mr. Speaker, these men and women save the lives of countless Canadians each and every day. We cannot forget the daily challenges of their profession and are reminded of this when discussing paramedic wellness and the high rates of PTSD suffered by first responders. Mr. Speaker, there are everyday heroes. They are our everyday heroes, and it is an honor for us to host them in the House of Commons today. Please join me in welcoming them.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to talk a bit about two of my great West Kelowna constituents, Peter Klein and Anya Damas. Peter is known originally for creating what is called the Canada Cake, which is a 4x6 cake with 40 pounds of fresh strawberries placed to look like the Canadian flag for Canada Day. One day, Anya approached Peter to learn how the cake was assembled, and she learned very quickly. She became very good at it and eventually took over for Peter. Her baking was greatly appreciated by everyone around, and she even received praise from Premier Christy Clark. Unfortunately, Anya was recently involved in a tragic accident, and she lost the majority of her right arm. But she is a fighter, and she has said she looks forward to receiving a prosthetic and to continue making the Canada Cake for years to come. I'm personally inspired by Anya's optimism in the face of adversity and her dedication to her community of West Kelowna. She represents the best of us, Mr. Speaker. I'm immensely proud to know her, and I ask all members to help celebrate Anya's continued perseverance on this big challenge.
The honourable member for Nipissing to Miskamang.
Mr. Speaker, nothing says summer like a road trip. Dirigez-vous le long de l'autoroute.
Head along the Trans-Canada Highway from east or west, and you'll wind up in Nipissing to Miskaming. Stand amid the towering pines in the Temagami Wilderness, where a group of 7 artists drew inspiration.
Of the Tema Amagama Anishinaabe, or Deep Water by the Shore People, during the annual powwow on Bear Island, July 8th and 9th. Travel along the routes of the voyageurs who in turn were following the path of the Huron and Ojibwe during the Mattawa River Canoe Race on July 29th. Or rock along the tunes from headline acts at the homegrown talent during Summer in the Park, North Bay's annual homage to music and fun, August 4th through 6th. L'été est vraiment...
Summer is an all too short 79 days. Enjoy it while it lasts and see where the open road takes you.
Rappelez-vous, vous êtes toujours bienvenue au...
Remember, you're always welcome in Nipissing to Miskaming.
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Ramadan is a blessed and revered month for Muslims all over the world. The word Swam, or fasting, is one of the 5 major pillars of Islam. Fasting is not just abstaining from eating and drinking from dusk to dawn. It teaches a person the principles of compassion, and it indoctrinates patience and selflessness. As through fasting, we feel the pains of deprivation but endure them patiently. It creates in a person the real spirit of social belonging, unity and brotherhood, of equality before God as well as before the law. We break our fast each night after sundown with an iftar dinner, and I look forward to sharing many iftars with the community and with my parliamentary family as we work hard on the people's business in the days and weeks ahead. To all Canadian Muslims, I wish you Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, to coin a phrase, diversity is our strength. At our Conservative Leadership Convention this weekend, I was struck by the diversity in our party. Ethnic and religious diversity, yes, but also intellectual diversity. People with different opinions having respectful discussions. And unlike the Liberal Party, we embrace diversity of opinion. Now, our leadership race was remarkably successful, featuring real debate, good ideas from almost all the candidates, and the largest number of people participating in a party leadership in Canadian history. We have chosen a leader with firm convictions and vision rooted in real-world experience. You know he didn't grow up rich because his father was a journalist. Our leader will unite a diverse Conservative family to make life more affordable for families. We will stand up for freedom of speech, of conscience, and free votes for Member of Parliament. He may not look as good in a boxing ring, but our leader will always be on your side.
The honourable member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, once again, Coptic Christians in Egypt became victims of another gruesome terrorist attack. Last Friday, a bus filled with innocent pilgrims was attacked. A group of terrorists killed 28 men, women, and children and injured another 23. The Prime Minister issued a statement condemning this heinous act and offering condolences to those affected. I spoke with Father Angelo Saad to express my sympathies and affirm our government's support. Those responsible must be brought to justice. The Prime Minister affirmed Canada's commitment to combating extremism and terrorism at the recent G7 summit. Minority groups have been targeted too frequently in the Middle East. We stand firm as a voice that promotes human rights and speak out against persecution of minorities. As someone who was born in the region, I dream of a day when minorities, including Christians, are treated as equal citizens in the Middle East.
Honourable member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, the Kinder Morgan pipeline is a bad deal for British Columbia. It's being rammed through our beautiful province by this Liberal Prime Minister who broke his election promise not to approve this pipeline. The Prime Minister knows Kinder Morgan is slated to be pushed to up to 15 First Nations reserves without consent. And his Natural Resources Minister even said he would use the Army to push this through if necessary. Now, Section 78 of the National Energy Board Act states, quote, "No company shall take possession of or occupy lands in an Indian reserve without the consent of the Governor and Council." So this means the Prime Minister will personally approve expropriating First Nations lands on reserve without consent. So I am warning the Prime Minister not to expropriate land from First Nation reserves. I'm warning the Prime Minister not to use the Army to enforce expropriation orders. If he does, there will be hell to pay in British Columbia, Mr. Speaker. Instead, the Prime Minister should reverse his betrayal and reject the Kinder Morgan pipeline.
The honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, it is with sheer delight that I rise today to pay tribute to my friend and colleague, the new leader of the Conservative Party. Thank you very much. During the leadership campaign, Canadians embraced his infectious personality, his incredible work ethic, and his positive message about the benefits of Conservative policies. He offers Canadians impeccable character, integrity, and especially authenticity. I am so proud to say our leader is someone who hard-working Canadian families can relate to, because he is one of them. In fact, someone in the media asked me the other day, with 5 kids, is there enough room in Stornoway for our new leader's family? Well, with our new leader at the helm, a united, energized, battle-tested caucus, the stay at Stornoway will be short, and there's lots of room at 24 Sussex. In 2019, Mr. Speaker, with sheer excitement, Canadians will elect a strong, united, Conservative government.
I think perhaps on behalf of the fraternity of presiding officers, I too can offer my congratulations to the official opposition. L'honorable député de Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I learned of the tragedy in the United Kingdom last week. On the heels of the attack of the Parliament in the United Kingdom in March, this new terrorist attack in Manchester specifically targeted the young, the defenceless, the innocent. Canada stands firmly with the United Kingdom and the British people during these difficult times, and we will continue to fight against terrorism and violence in all its forms. As Chair of the Canada-United Kingdom Interparliamentary Association, and on behalf of our members in this House, I extend my deepest condolences to our colleagues in the United Kingdom and to those they represent. I think I speak for all of us in this House when I say that our thoughts and our prayers are with the families and friends of all those affected by this heinous terrorist attack.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, when I was younger, I remember families like mine who had to deal with the disastrous policies of the 1970s. In less than 2 years, this Prime Minister is clearly leading Canada in the same direction with irresponsible decisions, higher debt, and higher taxes. As the Prime Minister is much older than me, he must remember this difficult time. Can the Prime Minister then please explain why his policies are hurting young people and all those that this government claims it's helping? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I would like to say welcome to the new official opposition leader. I am certain that all the members of this House wish him success. And with that, I would like to say that our plan is a plan that will help Canadians with high levels of growth. The last trimester is the best trimester in 6 years. Lower unemployment than 10 years ago. It's important to continue with our plan. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Speaker, if the Prime Minister doesn't think that there's something wrong, that shows just how out of touch he is. His misguided economic policies are hitting people hard right now. He's hiking payroll taxes, making it harder for young people and new entrants into the workforce to find jobs. He's made it harder to save for retirement. He's nickel and diming Canadians on everything from textbooks to bus passes. Why can't the Prime Minister understand that this high tax, high spending agenda hurts the very people that he claims to help? Right?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, now in English, I'd like to welcome the member of as the new leader of the official opposition. I know I can speak for people in this House that we look forward to working with him in the years to come. I do want to say that it's important that he started out with a question on economics. We know that the program that we've put in place is really making an important difference for Canadians. We've seen 250,000 net new full-time jobs in Canada. We know that our level of economic growth, the last quarter, has been the best in 6 years. So, Mr. Speaker, our program is working, it's helping Canadians, and we look forward to continuing it.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's hard to exaggerate just how out of touch this Prime Minister is with the lives of Canadian families. He thinks you help the middle class by buying Broadway tickets for Wall Street big shots. He thinks you help the middle class by hiking taxes on kids' sports, on their music lessons, and on public transit. Can the Prime Minister explain exactly how higher taxes will improve the lives of hardworking Canadians and how hard it will be for future generations to pay back the borrowing that they're racking up?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. The very first thing we did was lower taxes on middle-class Canadians. What we know for sure is that for the average family, they're paying $540 less in taxes. For the average individual, $330 less in taxes. And that, together with other issues like the Canada Child Benefit, that's helping 9 out of 10 families, is helping Canadians to succeed with our policies.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister once again reduced Canada's commitment to the fight against ISIS. For no apparent reason, Canada's contribution of surveillance aircraft was quietly cut in half. Even though he was at NATO bragging about Canada's commitments, the truth is that the Liberals are happy to let others do the heavy lifting when it comes to fighting radical terrorism. Can the Prime Minister name even one NATO ally who asked us to cut our contribution to the war against ISIS?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, very proud of the work of the commitments that we have made by increasing the ground forces that have actually a direct impact on the ground, the intelligence contributions that we have made, the Roll 2 hospital that we have put in place, having a direct impact on the ground, Mr. Speaker. And I can assure you, when I was at the counter-IAS meeting, that's exactly what we talked about. And we will always continue to revamp our commitments to making sure that we are going to be a viable and credible partner to this coalition. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, under this Prime Minister, Canada is not back in the world. It is absent. Canadian surveillance aircraft are world leaders, and our allies need them. The Manchester attacks proves that radical terrorism is a very real threat for Canada and its allies. Can he name just one of our allies who agrees with our decision to leave the fight against ISIS?
Minister of National Defense.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, we increased our contribution to the fight against Daesh within Iraq by tripling our trainers, doubling the intelligence, Mr. Speaker. And we review our missions every single year to making sure that we remain a credible partner. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, to making sure that we take the time to consult with our allies, to making sure that we have the right resources in place. That's exactly what we did when we put the World 2 Hospital in, Mr. Speaker. And this is one of the reasons we're actually having an impact on the ground today. Thank you.
Honourable Member for London Fanshawe. Order.
Mr. Speaker, acknowledging that the Liberals' privatization bank was hastily put together and aims to help corporations, not Canadians. The Liberals promised transparency and accountability. They promised to do politics differently. Well, here's their chance to prove it. Will the Liberals come clean and admit that their infrastructure bank will mean user fees and tolls on hard-working Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, we consulted our municipalities, provinces, territories before the creation and introduction of the legislation for the creation of the infrastructure bank. What we heard from our partners that despite our historic investment that we're making in infrastructure, there will still remain infrastructure deficit. So we want to mobilize private capital to ensure that our municipalities that need the infrastructure, they have the infrastructure to grow our economy, create jobs for the middle class, and opportunities for those who work hard and each and every day to be part of the middle class. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, we learn more and more every day about the Infrastructure Privatization Bank. We already knew that people are going to have to pay user fees, but now we're learning that the bank could be vulnerable to political interference. Who said that? François Baudouin, former president of the Business Development Bank of Canada. And he should know because he was a victim of Shawinigan under the former Liberal Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, will the bank, along with costing taxpayers more money, will it just be a goose laying golden eggs for Liberals and their buddies?
Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for the last couple of weeks, the member of the opposition and his party has been criticizing us that the bank is too close to private capital. And today he is saying that we are too close, that we are too close to government. We have struck the right balance. We believe that the bank will be on arm's length accountable to Parliament. It will be able to make a decision on its own, ensuring at the same time that projects we put forward are in the public interest and are best for the Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, if investors are going to invest in the infrastructure bank, it's because they want profits, so that means there's going to be fees for taxpayers. In the last campaign, the Prime Minister committed to reestablishing lifetime pensions for wounded veterans and to increase the amount of disability benefits available. Well, surprise, it seems like today the government is walking back that promise, and they're going to once again break a promise. Could this government just once, from time to time, keep its word, show a little bit of respect, and reestablish lifetime pensions for wounded veterans?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, our government is acknowledging the significant contributions that veterans and the Canadian Armed Forces have made and continue to make in protecting Canadians' peace and security at home and around the world. We will deliver on what we committed to and to support the mental health, financial security, and the well-being of veterans and their families. We remain committed to a pension for life option, and in Budget 2017, we have outlined that we will announce further details later this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Veterans deserve respect, financial security, and fair treatment. But the minister breaking his promise of a full pension leaves veterans vulnerable, frustrated, and betrayed. The minister refuses to listen. Rumblings of discontent are even coming from the minister's own consultation groups. This government called for real change for veterans, but so far veterans have been shortchanged. Will the minister keep his promise, fulfill the sacred obligation owed to our veterans, or will he explain his betrayal to the veterans of this country?
The Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2016 was about investing in the financial security of veterans with over $5 billion in the new money for benefits. In Budget 2017, it was about supporting the health and well-being for our veterans, Mr. Speaker. And we remain committed to a pension for life option in Budget 2017, and we outlined that we will announce the further details later this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beauce.
After Boeing filed a complaint against Bombardier, following the billions of dollars it received in subsidies, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said it could cancel the purchase from Boeing of 18 Super Hornets. Can the Minister tell us what is the most important? It is the Canadians' air defense capability or the financial interests of Bombardier?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what is the most important thing for me every single day, and that is jobs for hard-working middle-class Canadians. The aerospace industries of Canada and the United States are highly integrated and support good middle-class jobs on both sides of the border. We strongly disagree with the U.S. Department of Commerce's decision. Our government will defend the interests of the Canadian aerospace industry and our aerospace workers. I will always stand up for Canada.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, after forcing Canadian taxpayers to subsidize Bombardier with $372 million, the Liberal government is now endangering our trade relations with the United States, knowing that NAFTA negotiations will be starting soon in September. Can the minister please tell us once and for all today in this House just to what extent she is ready to compromise the economic interests of all Canadians just to defend the specific interests of one company? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I must start by making a little correction. NAFTA negotiations will start in August, not September. As for the aerospace industry in Canada, our industry is closely integrated with the United States and offers good jobs to middle-class people on both sides of the border. Our government will firmly defend the interests of Canadian workers, including aerospace workers. We will always defend the economic interests of Canada.
Simcoe Gray.
$35 billion infrastructure bank is under attack again. This time by someone who knows the back rooms of the Liberals really well. François Baudouin, the former head of the BDC who testified at Gomery about the Liberal corruption, has said that the bank is easily open to political interference. What a surprise. Considering the track record of the Liberal Party and its elite friends, this is a scandal waiting to happen. When will the Liberals focus on what we need to do for Canadians instead of their backroom elite friends?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Last week was a very good week for Canadian municipalities. We announced 750 projects, more projects in 1 week than the previous government did in 4 years combined, Mr. Speaker. 4 years combined. That is delivering for Canadians. We put forward a very ambitious agenda to build and rebuild Canadian communities. That is exactly what we are doing. We are investing billions of dollars in community infrastructure to grow our economy and enable our municipalities to deliver on the expected.
The Honourable Member for Simcoe Gray.
Mr. Speaker, Baudouin testified at the Gomery Inquiry that he was pressured to hire a Liberal staffer who wanted to have dry cleaning methods for hiding expenses. Now he says that the $35 billion infrastructure bank is wide open to political interference. This is Gomery 2.0. Why will the Liberals not protect Canadian taxpayers? Why are they not looking out for the money of Canadians as opposed to their friends, the Liberal elites?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the honourable member and this House that we are structuring the Canada Infrastructure Bank to function in a way that it will be accountable to the Parliament. It will report to the Parliament on an annual basis. At the same time, making sure there's a Crown Corporation arm's length from the day-to-day intervention of the government to make decisions that are in the best interest of Canadians, to build the infrastructure that Canadian communities need, the infrastructure that has been denied by the previous government's underinvestment for a decade. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, some things have changed since the last time I rose in this House, but one thing that has not changed is the Liberal government's steady withdrawal of Canada's fight against ISIS. In the last few days, we've learned that we're withdrawing our Aurora surveillance aircraft. Shame. My question is to the minister, who's now known as a military planner. Who is the architect of this withdrawal from the fight against ISIS? Is it you, Minister, or is it the Prime Minister?
Order. Now, member, I think, knows very well he's to direct his questions to the chair. He's saying he's out of practice. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, we're very proud of the revamped mission that we have put into Iraq. We've tripled our fighters. We doubled our intelligence. In regards to the Aurora aircraft, Mr. Speaker, in May, one of the two Aurora aircraft deployed in Operation Impact returned to Canada to ensure that the RCAF can continue to deliver on its full range of missions for Canada, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to fighting on Daesh, Mr. Speaker, it happens on the ground. And that's what our troops have done, is training the Iraqi security forces so that the fight can be taken directly to a Daesh, and that's exactly what is happening on the ground. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, in military planning terms, that response would be called a delay tactic, Mr. Speaker. First, the Liberals withdrew our CF-18s. Now they're withdrawing our CP-140 surveillance aircraft the same week that NATO is stepping up their efforts to fight ISIS. Why are the Liberals running from Canada's fight against ISIS?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we've increased our commitments to Iraq, Mr. Speaker. We've always working with our coalition partners and making sure we have the right adjustments, just like we did with the roll to hospitals before the commencement of the operation in Mosul, Mr. Speaker. And today, just to announce our extension and the also revamped mission for Operation Artemis, our counterterrorism fight in the Indian Ocean within that area, Mr. Speaker. We'll always we will be a credible partner with our coalition, Mr. Speaker, to making sure we have the right assets for our coalition partners to have an impact on the ground. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavik, EU. Well, over a year ago, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal determined that the government was guilty of racial discrimination against First Nations children. The Liberals said that they would act. They promised they would act. But last week, the tribunal was forced once again to put out a third order of non-compliance against this government. The government keeps saying that they're making investments, but the tribunal confirms that this isn't the case. I'll repeat, Mr. Speaker, the tribunal confirms that that's not the case. Why? Honourable Minister of Health.
To respond to this question and to say that our government is implementing Jordan's principle as the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal has indicated. In fact, to that end, we have taken steps so that now there are 5,000 children, 5,000 cases that have been identified where kids are getting the care that they need that weren't getting it a year and a half ago. We are determined to make sure that all children, First Nations children, Inuit children, get the care they need, and we will continue to implement this principle.
Honourable Member for Desnette, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Other 60,000 kids across Canada. Mr. Speaker, 9 days ago, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered the federal government to end discrimination in funding for First Nations kids. On Friday, the tribunal confirmed what we already knew, that the failure to live up to Jordan's principle contributes to the suicides that are plaguing Aboriginal youth. Countless other kids are at risk because of the Liberals' refusal to match their words with action. When will this government wake up to kids and help them?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
is determined to take action, and we have taken action. We have put new funding into First Nations and Inuit health. We invested in the order of $828 million of new funding for the First Nations Inuit health branch. We are making sure that people get access to the mental health resources that they need. We are implementing Jordan's principle. We are determined to find which kids are not getting the care they need and making sure that they get that care. We will continue to do this work and make sure that justice is done.
The honourable member for Belfast, Les Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, what's the best way to get an independent watchdog position from the Liberal government? Well, easy. Just go and chat up your Liberal buddies. That's what respected Acadian lawyer Michel Doucette was told about his chance of becoming Official Languages Commissioner by a Liberal MP. Forget it. Everyone knows that Madame Meyer is going to get the job. The question is simple. Was the game rigged in advance in favor of a good Liberal donor even before the process began? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, our two official languages are a priority for our government. And after a long, open, merit-based process with 72 candidates, the process found that Madame Meyer stood out. Why? Because she was able to show her expertise, her qualifications, and her impartiality. For over 30 years, Madame Meyer has fought for good Francophone services, particularly with the protection of the Montfort Hospital, and I'm confident that Madame Meyer will be able to fulfill this job in full impartiality. The honourable member for Belfast, Les Etchemins-Lévis. Preserving and promoting our two national languages is fundamental for our country, and like Graham Fraser before him, Acadian lawyer Michel Doucette wanted to be chosen for his qualifications, not for his political allegiance. This is a job that's too important to be drowned in partisan politics. That's what he said, and he's right. Can the Minister of Heritage please guarantee that the procedure put in place to appoint the Commissioner respects the Official Languages Act, or do we need to have an inquiry? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, as I've already said on a number of occasions in this House, our two official languages are a priority after a long process based, obviously, on merit, and which was open after 72 candidates came forward. After interviews, the selection process found that Madame Meyer was the best candidate. I also informed my two opposition critics, the two main parties, and both told me to what extent they agreed with the fact that Madame Meyer had the expertise and the experience necessary, and I hope that the House will vote in favor of her appointment.
Halton Hills.
Here. Mr. Speaker, a Liberal MP told Michel Doucette, a candidate for Commissioner of Official Languages, that s'il ne parlait pas à certains chefs.
If you don't speak to some top people in the Liberal Party of Canada, you won't be able to get the job.
Official Languages is an agent of Parliament, not a partisan employee of the Liberal Party of Canada. In the last election, the Prime Minister promised to clean up the partisan swamp. He promised to do things differently. Is this his idea of cleaning things up?
Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Two official languages are a priority for our government, and that's why after a rigorous and open and merit-based process, which included 72 candidates, a selection committee, multiple rounds of interviews, and psychometric tests, Mrs. Meyer clearly emerged as the most qualified candidate. We had the opportunity to ask, I had personally the opportunity to ask my two colleagues from both oppositions. They both said that Mrs. Meyer had the expertise and the experience, and also the leaders of the opposition and the Senate were confident.
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when Mr. Harper proposed Graham Fraser for the position, his credentials were above any partisan approach. But this Prime Minister proposed a candidate who does not pass the partisan smell test, and he failed to legally consult the opposition. This past January, the Prime Minister refused to answer an Anglophone in English. So much for the respect for this institution, Parliament, so much for the respect for Canada's two official languages. When will the Prime Minister withdraw this nomination?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Mr. Speaker, of course, our two official languages are extremely important for our government, but more than that, the vitality of the linguistic communities of the countries are also extremely important. And that is why we took this approach very seriously. And we did a rigorous, open, and merit-based process, which of course included many interviews, psychometric testing, and of course we're convinced that Mrs. Nair is the best suited candidate. She has the expertise, she has the experience, she has been involved her entire life in the protection of linguistic minorities, and that is why we're confident with her candidacy.
Order. The honourable member for Esquimalt Saanich Soup.
Mr. Speaker, at least 42 gay men from Chechnya have had to flee for their lives and are now hiding in dangerous situations elsewhere in Russia. Given the ongoing campaign to wipe out the gay community in Chechnya, and that is what's going on, the lives of these 42 men are still at risk from reprisals from Chechen officials, Russian officials, and sometimes even their own families. Will this government take immediate action in this emergency situation and grant these 42 temporary visas and then work with NGOs to help these men find a path to safety in Canada? The whole world is watching.
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. I absolutely share his view that what is happening to the gay men of Chechnya is deplorable, and we have spoken out clearly about that. I am very personally engaged in this matter and have been personally working with Russian NGOs. This is a very delicate situation and people's lives are in the balance, but we are very engaged.
The member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, we're not just talking about talking, we need everyone to act. During the election campaign, the Prime Minister said that he would not be shy about criticizing President Putin, but the least we can say is that his condemnation of the homophobic pogrom happening in Chechnya is rather timid. Where is the Liberal leader who was going to stand up against Putin and Putin's attacks against human rights? Will, at the very least, the government act and grant emergency visas to the 42 gay men who fled Chechnya fearing for their lives? Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Monsieur le Président, merci.
Mr. Speaker, thank you again for that question. This is an issue that is of concern to me. We defend human rights, especially when it comes to gay and bisexual men in Chechnya. We are actively looking for solutions to help these individuals, and I've spoken directly with NGOs in Russia. This is a very delicate issue, and we are describing everything that we can about how we are intervening, but we are committed.
Mr. Speaker, global economies are focusing increasingly on new markets and innovative industries, and now is the time to invest in Canadians. In many sectors, we have both the talent and the economic capacity to lead, to take full advantage of changing global priorities, to create the jobs of the future now and build the foundation for the next generation Canadian economy. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development explain what step this government is taking to invest in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Nepean, and I'd like to thank him for his work in developing our innovation and skills plan. And a key part of that plan is our Super Cluster Initiative. This is about helping Canadian companies grow and succeed in Canada and globally as well. And this is about creating good quality, resilient jobs by promoting collaboration between industry, academia, and civil society. We want to make sure we provide good economic, innovation, and industrial benefits. In 3 words, this plan is about jobs, jobs, jobs.
Honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, big city Liberals think that imposing a carbon tax on Canadians will just mean that more Canadians take their bikes to work. But in Saskatchewan, it's difficult to take your bike to work, especially when the weather is -30. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation calculated that if the Liberals have their way, their carbon tax of over $300 per tonne will cost over 90 cents per litre more. Wow. Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals determined to make it impossible for Saskatchewan families to make ends meet?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are working with the provinces to support the middle class and to make the planet cleaner for our children and for our grandchildren. Through the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change and Clean Growth, we're encouraging cleaner ways to do business and foster innovation. This is how you grow the economy and create jobs for the future. Under the previous government, Canada did nothing to address the issue of climate change and had a decade of incredibly slow growth. We are working together with the provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, business people, communities, and all Canadians to build a more sustainable, cleaner, and more prosperous economy and to support the creation of good middle-class jobs now and for the future.
Honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, farmers, like all businesses under these Liberals, are facing higher taxes and more expenses. Their competitors in the United States and Australia will have a massive advantage because they won't be paying a carbon tax. The Prime Minister's promise of returning to farmers the carbon taxes to the provinces rings hollow because farmers, like all Canadians, need to pay for their goods to be moved by trains and trucks, whether it's grain or fertilizer. Why are the Liberals making it harder for all Canadian businesses to survive with the imposition of a carbon tax?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Addressing climate change is one of the critical issues of our time. It is something we must do for our children and for our grandchildren. This government is committed to creating a more innovative economy that reduces emissions while creating good middle-class jobs. Pricing pollution is a market-based, efficient way to reduce emissions at the lowest possible cost and to stimulate innovation. This government has been actively working with the provinces and territories under the Pan-Canadian Framework regarding the pricing of carbon pollution to ensure flexibility exists for provinces to customize their systems to the unique circumstances of their province. This is an important economic and environmental measure, and we intend to continue forward.
Honourable member for Milton.
Transportation workers and small businesses are all reliant upon a stable and dependable transportation system. Now, CN Rail has received notice of a strike, and while the parties do remain at the table and continue to negotiate, people are concerned about the effect that a work stoppage is going to have on their jobs. So I want to know, Mr. Speaker, from the Minister of Transportation, does he actually have a plan in order to protect the jobs of these workers in the event of a work stoppage?
Honourable Minister of Employment and Labour.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and our government firmly believes in the process of collective bargaining. I've spoken to both of the parties, and they are working diligently to come to agreement, and we stand by them with the mediators that Canada so proudly provides.
Honourable member for Milton.
So, as my colleague says, Mr. Speaker, that's not a plan. Here's the deal, Mr. Speaker. In 5 days, mines will close. In 5 days, grain will back up in elevators. In 5 days, auto plants will run out of auto parts. In 5 days, retailers like Canadian Tire and Walmart will choose to leave Prince Rupert and Halifax. So, Mr. Speaker, again, this time to the Minister of Transport. Does he have a plan to make sure our transportation...
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I said, our government believes in the collective bargaining process. Both parties are at the table. They've been working around the clock to come to an agreement. We firmly believe in this process. We have mediators working with them, and we support them all the way. Thank you very much.
Order. There's far too much noise. Let's have a little quiet and listen to the questions and the answers. The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
As BC begins its busy boating season, this Liberal government is shutting down the Coast Guard's only emergency dive team specialized in search and rescue. So the last time the Liberals cut this dive team, 15 years ago, it led to deaths on our coast. Have the Liberals learned nothing from their past mistakes? Why are they killing this emergency service that keeps our coast safe? And will the Prime Minister reconsider his terrible decision?
Bravo. Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell this House that we've significantly increased the funding for the Canadian Coast Guard, for search and rescue services across the country, including in British Columbia. There are 4 new lifeboat stations being set up in British Columbia right now. There's a 15% increase in the frontline personnel on the water. Mr. Speaker, the waters of British Columbia and every coastline across the country will be safer than they've ever been before. My colleagues from British Columbia understand this. Our government is investing in these services and will continue to do so.
Member for Vancouver East.
2 months ago, a young boy named Dash discovered his father's body at their home. Dash had already lost his mother to breast cancer several months ago. His Aunt Willow welcomed Dash into her home and applied for parental benefits so that she could care for him as he struggles with this traumatic loss. But she was told that permanent legal guardians are not eligible for the same parental supports as adoptive parents. What will this government do for Willow and Dash? And will they amend the EI Act so families like them can get the support that they need?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All members of this House are very saddened by the difficult times in which many of our Canadian families are living, such as the circumstance just described. The role of the EI parental benefits, maternity benefits and other special benefits is exactly to support those families in the difficult times in which they live. I invite my colleague to make sure that all the information that is relevant to this case to be known to my department.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister likes to talk about being accountable and transparent, but every chance he gets, he uses his power to run away from accountability in this place. Whether he's stripping the powers of the PBO or changing the rules arbitrarily so that he only has to be here 1 day a week, he treats Parliament like it's a nuisance. So my question is, when he is here answering 1 day a week, will he at least answer our questions and not give us this rinse and repeat times 19 that we've had to deal with last week?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to rise in this House and to actually recognize that the member does hear some of the stuff that we say, that she recognizes that we can modernize this place and have some of those important questions, some conversations that we've been encouraging. When it comes to the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the constructive feedback that was shared was heard, and that's the importance of legislation actually making it to committee. When committee can do the important work, hear from experts, actually listen to stakeholders, we can improve legislation so that we are serving in the best interest of Canadians, and that's exactly what we've done.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Opposition House
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, no one believes that the Prime Minister is being accountable. Even the media isn't buying it. The Globe and Mail wrote, "We have the Liberals whose new rules threaten to make a government less accountable, not more." Mr. Speaker, only this Prime Minister would believe that showing up 1 day a week to work makes someone more accountable. Is the Prime Minister's lack of accountability genetic, or is it something that maybe he's learned from Kathleen Wynne?
Honourable Government House Leader.
This government is committed to working hard on behalf of all Canadians. We are committed to having constructive and meaningful conversations to ensure that we are serving in their best interest. When it comes to a Prime Minister's question period, the member has been mistaken once again. The Prime Minister's question period would be in addition to the other days that he was present. We already see that this government is doing government very differently. We are a more open and transparent government, just like we committed. When questions are posed of this government, ministers that are present always answer, otherwise parliamentary secretaries do. We will continue to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the Justice Minister's father, the esteemed Chief Bill Wilson, called out the Prime Minister for the failed missing and murdered inquiry. He actually called it a farce and urged the Prime Minister to fire the commissioners and start all over. He wrote, quote, 8 months, $6 million, and nothing has been done except pay for salary and expenses. Victims and families are threatening to boycott. Will the minister stand up and tell us what she's going to do today to fix this mess?
Good question.
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
We are committed to ending this ongoing national tragedy. As family member Bernie Williams has said, families have fought too long and hard for this much-needed inquiry. To abandon it and them now. The Commission has publicly acknowledged the need for increased communication and that families must be at the centre of the inquiry. The Commission is committed to find culturally sensitive and trauma-informed ways to ensure this, and I'm pleased that the hearings will begin in Whitehorse this week.
The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister's Special Advisor on LGBTQ2 issues, I know that Canada has an incredible reputation as one of the most LGBTQ2-friendly countries in the world. Cities like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Halifax, and of course Edmonton are internationally recognized LGBTQ2 destinations. Our community contributes over $4 billion annually to tourism in Canada. La ministre de la Petite Entreprise et de Tourisme.
The Minister of Small Business and Tourism. Can they inform us about the plans for tourism for LGBTQ communities? I would like to thank the member for Edmonton Centre, and we wish everybody an excellent tourism week.
Q2 tourism spending is $202 billion annually. As part of Canada's new tourism vision, we're partnering with Travelgate Canada to provide training for LGBTQ2 tourism businesses. Canada's welcoming spirit will help attract more tourists to incredible Pride celebrations across this country, creating more customers for small businesses and more jobs in the tourism industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Leeds, Granville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lake.
Mr. Speaker, we learned last week the heartbreaking news that 500-plus Brockville and area residents will be losing their jobs when the Procter & Gamble plant shuts down and moves to West Virginia. The Liberals' preoccupation with raising taxes, adding a carbon tax, and increasing payroll taxes have forced these jobs out of Canada, and many more will follow. When will the Liberals abandon their high-tax scheme and start helping struggling Canadians? What specifically will they do to help the hard-working people in my riding?
Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we've introduced 2 budgets that deal with the anxieties and challenges faced by many of these communities. That is why growth is up. That is why exports are up. That is why manufacturing is up. That is why job numbers are up. And if you look at the last 8 months, there's been 250,000 good quality, resilient jobs that have been created, Mr. Speaker. And our unemployment level has gone from 7.1% to 6.5%, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to work hard for middle-class Canadians and to help these communities make sure that these investments are made in Canada to create good quality jobs.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, the CRTC is pulling the rug out from under everyone's feet by cutting into the funding for local and French language programming with serious consequences. In Quebec, 3 original series were cancelled. It's immoral, but the CRTC allowed it. Even the Minister of Culture for Quebec asked the CRTC to redo its homework. I wrote a letter to the Minister of Heritage to remind her that the government can intervene to return a decision before the CRTC in exceptional cases like this one, which is threatening cultural industries in their entirety. In this exceptional case, can we count on the Minister to return these misguided decisions before the CRTC? Will independent producers, the craftspeople of television, count on her? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. The government firmly believes in the importance of culture, and that's why we invested $1.9 billion in the 2016 budget, which is the most important investment in 30 years. And this is we are the only G7 country to have invested in culture. The impact of the CRTC decision is under study and invite artists and creators involved in the industry to make their voices heard. Mr. Speaker, Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen are all facing a serious food crisis. Right now, more than 20 million people are at risk of famine because of intense drought and long-standing conflict. Today, our government has made an important announcement on this matter. Can the Minister explain to the House how Canada is expecting to increase its contribution and further help those who are the most vulnerable victims of this terrible crisis? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague, the member for Davenport, for the question. Today we started a fund to fight famine to help the 20 million people who are facing famine in Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. Registered Canadian organizations between March 17th and June 30th. For donations made in this time period, the government will contribute an equivalent amount.
Information is available on canada.ca
are following #ZeroFamine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honourable member for Edmonton-Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, with 24 hours until the Canadian Autism Partnership vote, the Liberals have still not signalled their support. They talk about research, but researchers themselves want to see their work actually used to benefit families. They talk about transfers to provinces while some Canadian families mortgage their homes, Mr. Speaker, to fund evidence-based early intervention or adult programs. The experts, the incredible self-advocates, and Canadian families have worked tirelessly for years to get to this point. Can they count on their Minister of Health to stand up for them and support this motion tomorrow?
Secretary, Minister of Disability.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous reconnaissons.
We recognize that the autism spectrum disorder has a significant impact. It has an impact on individuals and families. Federal investment in research in order to improve data, monitoring, support people who are affected by autism spectrum disorders. Currently, there is an attempt to develop an accessibility law, and autism will be part of this new legislation. The member for Pierre-Boucher, Les Petres de Verchamp. Mr. Speaker, aside from the health issues and public safety issues, legalizing marijuana is a matter of money. On top of that, we know that who it's going to benefit, the Friends of the Liberal Party. There is an administration board that is soliciting former ministers, senators, and former party directors. Are we offering golden parachutes to?
I thank the member for his question. It is referring to the fact that there are a number of licensed producers across the country. There are now 44 of them that are producing cannabis for medical purposes. There is a regulatory arm's length process that is undertaken in order to determine whether someone qualifies to be a licensed producer, and I'm pleased that the process is working well.
The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the process isn't working that well. The recreational marijuana industry is not yet set up, and it already reeks of cronyism and patronage. When the industry turns up at your fundraising cocktails a year before the bill is tabled, when it hires your former ministers, your former senators, and your former party directors, it's because there are expectations. Will this government commit to giving Quebec and other provinces the option of selecting their own authorized producers in order to end what seems to look like more and more, and it wouldn't be the first time, a conflict of interest? The Honourable Minister of Health.
I said we're proud of the fact that in Canada we have a regulatory process that is approved through Health Canada for the process of having licensed producers. There are now 44 licensed producers in the country. The vast majority of them, 30 in fact, were approved by the previous Minister of Health, who was a member of the benches opposite, and so I suppose that one could also ask that member whether or not she feels that it was also a good arm's length process.
The member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, August 11, 2014, the Prime Minister talked about the Israelo-Palestinian conflict. There's a two-state solution that is indispensable to end hostility in the region. That's great, but Canada has to recognize Palestine as a state and that it is independent. My question is a simple one. Will the government recognize Palestine as an independent state? The Minister of Foreign Affairs. Canada has a long-standing commitment to a long-standing peace and to a two-state solution negotiated by the parties involved. Israel has a right to live in peace within its borders, safe borders, as well as the creation of a sovereign Palestinian state. Canada encourages all parties to take the measures required in order to support negotiation and that those include the perspective of the two-state solution.
For today, the
honourable member for Beauport on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage said in the House that we'd been consulted and that we agreed with her choice, which is not true. She called me, it's true, and I said literally that Ms. Mayer was not the right person because she was affiliated with the Liberals. Mr. Speaker, I would call on the Minister of Heritage to apologize. That's a matter of debate, but I see that the Minister of Canadian Heritage is on her feet. I'd like to correct my colleague. I never said she approved the choice. I said that she recognized her experience and knowledge. And she did say that she was qualified, that she did have the necessary skill set, and that she had a background of defending minority language rights. I'd like to thank the honourable member and minister. Tabling of documents.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hope you won't mind a brief commentary before my point of order, which will relate to Standing Orders 16 and 18, to congratulate the member from Regina Capel on becoming the leader of the official opposition. I do recall his time as Speaker, and I hope he will too, and help this place to